Hi everybody and welcome to the Tour du Mont Blanc webinar. Just as a brief overview, I am Frances McCann. We have Shona Proven here today too. She is coordinating the question and answer session. As a brief overview, we have a screen here with the agenda for the day. We'll get into more detail about that shortly, but we just as a housekeeping note, you can ask any questions by typing in the question box, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. If you can't see it, there's a little arrow to expand the window so you can type your questions. And we'll be getting to the question and answer at the end. So do be patient and we'll get through everyone's questions at that section. We will also follow up to everyone with a recording of today's session and some useful links which will help answer any additional questions. Just to start on the agenda on the next screen, we'll be starting with an introduction from our Chief Adventure Officer, Neil, and then we'll move on to early season conditions and weather with Craig, some information and logistics with Sarah, who will be explaining a bit about the self-guided walk, what documents you should have as part of your Max Adventure trip, and anything else about accommodation, baggage transfer, that sort of thing. Then a section on getting prepared with Minna, which includes what to pack, what currencies, and any fitness and health advice. And then we'll be finishing off with the FAQ section. Just to clarify, the webinar is really aimed at Max Adventures clients, so people that are travelling with us in the first month of the season until mid-July. But we have opened it up to anyone else interested in the Tour du Mont Blanc. Of course, it might help you visualise the route. We're having a couple of comments with people that can't hear. If anyone else is having problems, just drop us a little link on the question section. I think most of the audio is working fine, though. If anyone does have any problems, we'll follow up with all the information, answers to all the questions by email. Just handing over now to Neil Lackey, who is our Chief Adventure Officer, and will introduce a little bit about the Tour du Mont Blanc.
Well, big good afternoon from me in a very sunny Glasgow today, and I'm thrilled to be introducing the Tour du Mont Blanc in a webinar. Hopefully you can hear me nice and loud and clear, and I'm joined here today by Sarah, who is one of our product team who looks after the Tour du Mont Blanc, Craig, that many of you would have spoken to, and Minna will be joining me shortly. The reason I was asked to introduce the Tour du Mont Blanc is, despite having walked all over the world and on hundreds and hundreds of miles of trips, it remains one of my absolute favorites. And I know that it can be a big challenge, and it can be a little bit worrying when you, in the planning session, you're thinking, what's it going to be like, and what are the huts going to be like, and can I do the Col de la Seine, or should I do the Fenestrée or Pet, and what's it like getting to Chamonix? Once you're in the trip, the experience is absolutely fantastic. I was lucky enough to do it with a great group of people a couple of years ago and enjoyed every moment, and I'm sure you will as well. So I would just like to wish you a fantastic trip. I thank you for choosing to book your trip with Max Adventure, and just remind you that myself and my team are really here to help you every step of the way. So I hope you have a good trip, and I'm going to hand over to the rest of the team for the rest of the webinar, and have fun and enjoy it, and I hope that the weather in the Alps is as sunny on your trip as it is in Glasgow today. Have fun. Great, I think it's going to be Craig who's going to be handing over now. Yeah.
Cool, so I'm Craig. I'm one of the destination and adventure specialists for the Tour du Mont Blanc. I might have spoke to some of you previously when booking your trip. I'm just going to focus my time on just looking at the weather and the conditions of the route and the area. Obviously, being in the mountains, it can be very difficult to predict the weather. This sort of makes sort of long forecasts very difficult and inaccurate. I will be looking at the sort of 5-day schedule for the weather. Obviously, being in the mountains, you do have a sort of microclimate, which does make this very difficult to predict. So I'll just go on to the next slide just now, and we can sort of look at the next couple of days' forecasts, which will help give us a better understanding of sort of what to expect. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the 5-day sort of upcoming weather. Focus your eyes just down to the freezing level. As you can see, we're sort of starting off between 3,400, and it sort of stays at this level up until sort of 4,000. Obviously, we want the freezing level to be as high as possible, just to prevent any snow lying on the trail itself. Just looking over to the weekend, you will see there's quite a lot of rain coming in. That's on Saturday and Sunday of this weekend, and again on Monday night. You will notice that the freezing level actually drops to under 2,500 metres. So some of this rain will turn to snow, and it will stay on the trail over this period. Hopefully it will heat up and eventually melt, but at the moment we are sort of expecting some snow to be coming down in the next couple of days. Obviously we will be keeping you updated. Our first trip start date is sort of 15th of June, so we'll be giving you an update closer to the time. But at the moment it does look as though there is some snow coming in. We do have some links to different websites that you will be provided with, and so I would highly recommend that you check the links and just check the weather just before you head out, just to get a better idea of what to expect and the sort of conditions that you might encounter. There are some links to webcams throughout the route, so you can see some of these here. For example, we've got the Cormayeur, the Colchuru section here just on the right side. So as you can see, there is some snow in the higher up passes. This was taken this morning, and you can check this every day. So again, just check closer to your trip start date for a better idea. I think we've got some more. If we can just go to the next slide. Yeah, here we can see, here's a col de Bam. So you will be walking down this trail that you can see on the left side. And from Chamonix at La Plagère, you can see on the right screen. So these are two sections of the trail that you'll be doing. Also, it will be dependent on the itinerary and the route that you take. But here you can see the sort of general sort of condition of the trails at this moment in time. Again, as I said, it's quite difficult to predict a long forecast, so I'd highly recommend that you check several times just on the run up to your trip. We contacted some of the refugees earlier on today just to find out what the conditions are and just get a quotation from them, just so we can hear what they have to say about the trail itself and the general conditions. So the refuge Lac Blanc, which is just above Chamonix, so there is still snow, but much less than last year, which is a good thing. They have recommended that customers have some good shoes and some walking poles just to help navigate the trail if there is some snow. Refugio Benati got in contact with us and said that there's much less snow than this time last year, so that's always a good thing to hear from the refugees. Okay, you can see on the screen that I've sort of highlighted the higher passes of the trail. So you'll see the Col de Fours, for example, the Col de Bam and Le Brevant all highlighted on the screen. So you'll be able to see these are the higher sections, which most likely will be covered in snow at this time of year. As I said, hopefully the freezing level does stay high, and this will eventually melt down and make the trails fully accessible. I would recommend when you're out there, if you do see any trails that are closed, that's ferme in French, then don't pass these. We do provide different variants in the guidebook, so you can sort of miss these higher passes, and all the information will be in your info pack, which you'll receive before your trip. Okay, so I'm just going to sort of talk about the potential implications. So there could be neve. This is basically frozen snow. which when stepped on, it is compressed into a sort of icy layer. And this also can make it very slippery and quite dangerous. So obviously trust your judgment. Make sure you've got walking poles if necessary, and take your time when passing these sections. Okay. The sun is a big factor. You will need sun cream on the trip. Even if the sun's not out, you still have the UV rays coming through the clouds. So I'd always recommend that you have sun cream and any lip cream. Just to summarise, again, check your local. So check with the refugees when you're walking around the route. Also, they'll have a better understanding of the trail conditions. And again, just check the links that we provide. Make sure you're up to date with the weather and prepare accordingly. We do have some alternative transport options. There is some shuttle services that Sarah will go into in more detail. You just take care out there and make sure you prepare well. I'll pass you over to my colleague Sarah, who will go through the transport options.
Great, thanks Craig. I'm just going to start by just saying I think some people are having problems hearing us. We apologise for that. We are recording, so you should be able to watch. You will be able to watch this again later, and you'll be able to hear everything then. Okay. So yeah, my name is Sarah. I'm a product manager for France and for the TMB, and I'm going to talk you through some of the operations and some of the logistics of this trip. Okay. So I'll just start by doing a very brief introduction to self-guided adventures. So this is a self-guided trip, and hopefully that's not news to any of you. Just to clarify, there won't be a guide on this trip. Okay. I'm sure many of you have done a self-guided trip before, probably with Max Adventure, which is great. But for some of you, this will probably be your first self-guided walking trip. Here at Max Adventure, we really believe that this is the best way to travel, especially on a trip like Tour du Mont Blanc. It really allows you to go at your own pace. You'll have this amazing sense of achievement at the end of it all. It's also, the TMB has got a real feeling of camaraderie about it, and you're going to meet loads of people from all over the world, so that's always a plus. It is self-guided, but there is still a bit of responsibility required from yourself, so you need to really use your judgment and be aware of your surroundings. So kind of going back to what Craig was talking about the weather conditions, for example. We strongly recommend that you study the guidebook and maps, an information book before you go out. And we also recommend that you highlight the route with a highlighter. So I would definitely take a couple of hours to do this before you go to France. It really will help you become familiar with the tour, and you'll have a bit of a better understanding of what to expect when you're out there. I would also look at the route each evening for the following day, just to refresh your memory a bit. Okay. But having said all that, above all, we don't want you to worry, because it's a really popular trip. It's very well waymarked, very well trodden, and there's always going to be other walkers around, so you're going to be absolutely fine. Okay, so moving on to the pre-departure information packs. So at least 4 weeks before you depart, you will receive a pre-departure information pack from us through the post. Okay. If you're leaving in less than 4 weeks and you don't have this yet, please get in touch with us ASAP, and we'll get that sent out to you. So in the info pack, you'll have 2 IGN maps. So that's IGN 3630 for Chamonix, and the IGN 3531 for Saint-Gervais. You'll also have a Tour du Mont Blanc guidebook by Kev Reynolds, an information pack booklet, which you'll be using in conjunction with the maps and guidebook to help you find your way each day. Okay. You'll also have an accommodation list in there. Now, this accommodation list is unique to you. In some locations, we use several different accommodations, so you're likely to meet other Max Adventure walkers when you're out there. Please don't assume that you're staying at the same accommodation as them. We don't want you to follow them to the accommodation and find out you're actually staying on the other side of Chamonix. So please keep your accommodation list with you and have a look at it regularly. There'll also be a bad weather and alternative transport guide in there. This is great to have. You shouldn't need it, hopefully. We hope you won't need it. We hope the weather's going to be fantastic. But it's really informative, so always have that with you as well, and this will give you the options in case you can't walk a particular section. You'll also have your invoice in there, and if you've selected baggage transfer, there'll be luggage labels there too. So we often get asked if vouchers are required to check into accommodation. Not on the TMB. All you need to do is give the accommodation the lead booker's name, so that is the person who booked the tour with Max Adventure, and tell them that you're with Max Adventure and they'll check you in no time. Just a note about bus timetables. So unfortunately, bus and lift timetables in the area, they get published quite late, so we're still waiting to get all of the new timetables through. So we should have all the information for you by the end of next week. If there are any changes to the information that you guys already have, we'll be sending that out to you, so we'll be in touch. Okay, so don't worry about that, we'll get that to you in plenty of time. Okay, just moving on to bag transfers. So unlike the majority of our trips here at Max Adventure, bag transfer is not included as standard on the TMB. It is an additional cost. The vast majority of our clients do opt for the bag transfer, but there are some traditionalists out there who still like to just carry all their stuff with them, so good on them, but like I said, the majority of people like that wee extra luxury. If you're not sure if you've booked bag transfer or not, please check your invoice. If you've booked it, it'll be listed as an additional extra along with the cost there. If you haven't booked it and you're starting to change your mind, you think you might want it, that's okay as well. Again, just get in touch with us and we'll get that booked up for you. So there are a few rules around the bag transfer. There is a limit of 1 bag per person, and there's a weight limit of 15 kilograms per bag. If you think you might exceed this, you may have to buy an additional bag transfer, but if you're not sure about this, just give us a call and we can discuss the options with you. We also have a bag storage option. Now you might have excess luggage that you don't need to be transferred every day, so we have a service where it will get picked up from your first hotel in lelouch and stored for the duration of your trip, and then dropped off in your final hotel in Chamonix. If you've opted for the daily bag transfer, this service is free of charge. Okay, if you're interested in taking it, just get in touch with us, and it's very important that you let us know how many bags are to be stored. Okay, we get asked a lot if it should be a certain kind of bag for the bag transfer. The answer to that is no. It can be a rucksack, it can be a suitcase. The most important thing is that it closes and fastens securely. Okay. And I hope it goes without saying, but please don't pack any breakables or anything valuable. Okay. Right, depending on your itinerary, there may be some days where the bags can't be transferred to your accommodation. So if you're staying in Refugio Elisabetta, Refugio Bonatti, or Refuge de Lac Blanc, unfortunately your bags can't be transferred there. They're in such a fantastic location that cars can't get to it. So for those days, all you have to do is carry your overnight things in your day bag, and then you'll be reunited with your main bag the next day. So again, if you're not sure if you're staying there, just have a look at your accommodation list or get in touch with us and we can confirm that for you. Okay, if you have any necessary medication, please have this on you at all times, so don't put it in the bag that's getting transferred. Generally speaking, bag transfer runs really smoothly. We don't tend to have a lot of issues, but just in case it happens to be delayed on one day, it's really great that you have all that vital stuff with you, so keep anything important like that in your day bag. Okay, so moving on to shuttle transfers. So for getting to the start and end of this hike, we recommend that you take a shuttle transfer from Geneva Airport to lelouch, and then from Chamonix back to Geneva Airport at the end of the trip. So these transfers take about an hour each way, and they're the most straightforward way to get to where you need to be. There is a public transport option, but this takes, I think it's like 3 changes by train. But if you do want to do that, the information will be in your information pack, and you can just ask us as well. The shuttles can be booked through us. Some of you have probably done this. If you're not sure if you booked the shuttle transfer, check your invoice. If you'd still like to book it, just get in touch with us. The company we use for this is called Mountain Drop-Offs. And when you booked, we would have asked for your flight information and for your mobile number. And the way the transfers work is the evening before your transfer, you'll get a text message from Mountain Drop-Offs, and this will tell you, it'll just be confirming your arrival or departure details. It will tell you who's going to pick you up, and it'll also give you a customer reference number. So this customer reference number is handy to have in the case that you're delayed, for example. You can phone up Mountain Drop-Offs, give them your customer reference number, and then you'll be able to make different arrangements with them. Okay. And I think that's about it. Oh yeah, the shuttles are really easy to find. When you arrive to Geneva Airport and you come out of the arrivals section, you'll see small stands. There are several different companies offering these transfers. Just look for the Mountain Drop-Offs stand, head over to them, and they'll point you in the right direction for your transfer. So I think that's everything just now from the operational side of things. So I'll pass you on to my colleague, Minna.
Hi, I'm Minna. I work in the sales team like Craig, and hopefully I sold you your trip. So what I'm going to talk about is what you need to do to prepare for this trip, from what you need to pack, your travel insurance, your fitness levels. To start off this trip, what do I need to pack? I'd recommend layers. As Craig's mentioned, there can be snow. Snow, of course, means cold weather. However, during the day, it can heat up quite a bit. So I'd say, take practical clothes, layers, especially if you're staying up in the huts. It's really nice to have maybe a warm jacket. I also highly recommend waterproofs because you really don't know what you're going to get when you're out there. Regarding your boots, I would recommend sort of ones with ankle supports because you are doing a lot of ascents and descents. So anything to take the load off your legs, that'd be great, or just stop tripping over your ankle in general. For the refuges, you'll have to carry your evening stuff with you. Now, with the evening stuff, I'd recommend maybe bringing a light travel towel with you. A silk sleeping bag liner is also a really, really good idea. Regarding your backpack, if you do have the baggage transfers, I'd suggest don't pack too much. You won't need everything. Just make sure it has enough space for your lunch, for maybe an extra jacket, your medications. If you are planning on carrying your backpack most good for your journey, again, it actually goes the same. Don't pack too much. You probably won't need 5 different t-shirts. You'll probably end up wearing the same through the entire trip anyways. You really don't need to dress for the evenings. Everyone's sort of spent the day hiking, so everyone will be equally as smelly as each other. So no need to bring, your nice evening gowns. Those can definitely stay at home. And if you have brought them with, we can store them for you. So you don't need them sort of dragged around the whole Tour du Mont Blanc. So with walking poles, again, I highly recommend to bring walking poles. Again, because the descents and ascents, it's really helpful if you have sort of dodgy knees or anything like that. If there's anything on this list, though, that you feel like, ooh, I don't have that, I'm heading out in 2 weeks' time, you can buy everything in Chamonix. So if you've realized when you arrive that you've forgotten something, you can buy it all locally, which is really helpful. You can pick stuff up as well if you're halfway through your trip and you think, oh, I wish I had X, Y, and Z. You can pick that up. It's also really handy to bring a sort of small first aid pack with you, some blister plasters, and just sort of general first aid things, just in case. Sunglasses, sunscreen, kind of your base. That's sort of everything you'd need for a normal walk, just a little bit extra. With regards to what else you need to arrange prior to your travel, we recommend travel insurance. We don't check if you have it, but we do really, really recommend you have it. Make sure your insurance covers up to 2,600 meters, because that's the highest point of your trip. Also, mountain rescue would be great if that's included, because there's nothing worse than being stuck on a mountain and no way to get down besides helicoptering down, which won't happen to you, but you just want to be on the safe side. And regarding sort of currency that you have to pick up prior to your trip, we recommend you bring with euros and Swiss francs. It's good to have it in cash just because a lot of the huts may accept card, but I would not sort of risk that chance. We recommend about 30 euros a day. There's about 30 Swiss francs as well. Rather be on the safe side. Even though your meals are included, if you want a beer or a bottle of champagne or just something extra on the top, you'll have to pay that there locally. So yeah, about 30 euros a day. It just depends on how much you want to splash out. If 3 beers are enough for you, that should cover it just fine. If you want to go a little bit more, bring a little bit more. Regarding your fitness levels, this is the great thing about self-guided walk. You can really walk at your own pace, so there's no one sort of forcing you to walk faster or walk slower. So what I would recommend is starting off slow. So don't push yourself too hard on the first day, because you do build up fitness while you're going. Of course, the more you train at home before you go out, the more fun this trip will be. I mean, we recommend maybe practicing, go for a weekend away, do multiple walks back to back on multiple days, just to get used to walking every single day, because nothing can really prepare you for that besides just doing it. If you are concerned about your fitness, then seek medical advice. Just make sure that your doctor thinks that you're fit enough to do this if you're really concerned. Also, as Sarah's mentioned previously, if you need any medication, make sure it's on you, even if it's an EpiPen, or allergic to something, you just never know. So please keep all of your medication on you, just in case. Okay, I think that's it for preparations. So I think now we're going to talk about some of the frequently asked questions about this trip, and we'll just kind of answer it as they come.
We'll also be answering some of your questions as well. So if you've got any more questions, please just send it in, and we'll get around to answering that. Cool. So some of the common questions we've been asked, me and Minna usually respond to customer inquiries. So these are our sort of short list of commonly asked questions. So we'll just answer these just now for you, just to help you out if you need the answers. So popular question, what are the huts like, especially in the dorms? So depending on your itinerary, you may be booked into a dormitory space in one of the refuges. So the refuges are quite basic, but they will have electricity and showering water and running water for you to drink. So not completely basic, you're not stuck in a shed in the middle of nowhere. You will have facilities to wash and electricity. We can't guarantee that you have a plug to charge any technology or your phone, but there will be electricity in the refuges. So as you can see on the image, you will be having dinner with the other travellers. These are a great place to meet other people on the route, just sort of like you, adventure-minded travellers. In terms of the dormitories, it would be dependent on the refuge and what's been booked for you. The details will be in your accommodation list, and the dorms do vary in size. So for example, the image here, we've got a four-person dorm, so it is sort of bunk bed accommodation. Some of the larger dorms sleep up to 20 people. Again, the details will be in your accommodation list, which should be in your information pack. But here's some images just to give you a better idea of what to expect.
And I just say also the huts are just such a fantastic experience. There's nothing will prepare you for waking up in the mountains and just getting that up-close feeling that you do when you stay there. And on to sort of cell phone coverage. Actually, it is surprisingly well covered through the area. Of course, you are going to get through some sort of black hole areas where you won't get any cell phone coverage. However, nowadays technology is so clever that you can still make emergency calls if needed. I just wouldn't expect to get cell phone coverage the entire time. Also, just a question as well, we've asked if anyone has gotten any Wi-Fi. So if you're staying in hotels, you will be able to get Wi-Fi. However, in the mountain huts, you won't be able to get Wi-Fi. So again, as Craig said, check your itinerary, check your accommodation list, and see if you are staying in huts, and maybe prepare, tell your family you are staying in the hut that night so they don't get really worried about where you are and that you haven't been in touch. But yeah, so all your hotels will have Wi-Fi, so don't worry about that.
Just to put in there, on your accommodation sheet, you'll see a link to your accommodation. So if you're unsure and you really need Wi-Fi or internet that day, the best thing to do is just to click the link, and that will take you to the accommodation's own website, and that will have the full details about the facilities available. So always check before you go, and yeah, just check your info pack.
I've just seen a question here as well, if we can charge your phones in the huts. Yes, however, I wouldn't count on it because you are sharing these plugs between everyone else in the huts. So, if you really need to charge your phone, then that shouldn't be a problem at all. However, please bear in mind that you're not the only person in the huts. So, be reasonable.
Yeah, I would just add, if it's really important for you to always have your phone fully charged, you might want to take a battery pack with you. They can be quite light these days and quite compact, so that might be something to think about.
Cool, right, moving on. So if you don't want to walk one day, what do? How do you get a transfer? So again, in your information pack, we provide the alternative transport information document. Now, this has got a list of all the transfers, the timetables, and the contact numbers. So you should have everything you need to take the transfer. As Sarah mentioned, we are still waiting on getting the up-to-date timetables for this year. So we'll be in contact with you probably at the end of next week.
Yeah, hopefully at the end of next week.
Just with some more information. So you have everything you need. Also, if you're doing some more details when you're on the trip or just before you head out, just get in contact with us and one of us will be able to help you out.
We also have, hi Annie, we have a question about thunder and lightning and what to do if really bad weather sort of kicks up. I'd say if it's thunder and lightning, avoid walking. I really don't recommend going out in sort of one of these massive storms. However, good news in the mountains, the storms go by really quickly. So if you find sort of a safe shelter, if you know prior to your walk that it's going to be bad weather, maybe sort of time your walk around when the storm's supposed to hit. If you're out walking and a storm hits, I'd say, seek some refuge. Just get out of the rain. I do understand that this isn't possible all along the trail. Therefore, I just say you can walk a little bit faster. Also, your route notes, they'll say where you can stop, so you can say, okay, I know that in a kilometer's time we can reach a gondola station and wait it out there. But I really wouldn't recommend walking during thunder and lightning storms.
And we've got another question about the weather from Lisa. So Lisa's asked, if it's impossible to walk one stage due to the weather, is it possible to stay one more night in the hut? Now, the Tour du Mont Blanc is one of the most popular trails in the world. We have been having some availability issues recently for new customers looking to book up. So for this reason, it is very difficult for us to add in extra nights while you're on the trip. Obviously, this will put off the rest of your itinerary, and we have to rechange your booking throughout. So it can be very difficult for us to add in extra nights due to the weather. We will be providing alternative transport options. So the best solution to this would be to take the different options, make your way to the next stop, and then sort of continue your itinerary from there. So I'm going to say no, Lisa, it would not be possible to add an extra night in a hut.
Perfect. I've mentioned previously how much money you need to take with. Again, just to say, I'd say 30 euros per day per person. Same goes for Swiss francs. You can let out money as well in Geneva Airport. So if you've started your trip and you think, oh, I forgot to get Swiss francs. Geneva Airport has an ATM which lets out euros and Swiss francs. But you also have ATMs in lelouch, in Chamonix, and in Courmayeur. So even if halfway through the trip you decide you haven't let out enough, there's ATMs there, so you can do that as well. Cool,
so moving on. Should you take crampons, or are crampons necessary? I'm going to say no, they shouldn't be. Also, highly recommend that you check the weather before you head out. There are shops in Chamonix should you require to hire some crampons, but you shouldn't need to take out any of your own crampons or equipment, for example, harnesses, rope, ice axes.
Micro spikes. Sorry, I'm saying.
Yeah, none of this should be required. Obviously, if the weather does come in and it snows before the trip starts, then we also will look at it closer to the time, or if there are any changes in the weather, we'll update you and let you know what you need. But at the moment,
if you have
I say no.
Well, if you have them, you can take it with. So crampons are, just for people who don't know, crampons are kind of like bear traps that you attach to your feet, except for they don't shut that way, they open up the other way. But they're just sort of spikes that you can put in your shoes to keep you from slipping on sort of snow and ice. However, you don't walk on normal ground with crampons, you only walk on sort of snowy conditions. So if there's a little bit of rock, you really don't recommend using crampons.
And just to add to what Craig was saying about needing crampons, this sort of comes back to using your own judgment. So, you know, it's easy for us to say one thing sitting here in Glasgow, but you guys are on the ground. So if you're really unsure, if you're out there and you're thinking, I might need crampons, get in touch with us and let us know. Ask the accommodations, ask around. Okay, so just use your judgment best you can, and don't be afraid to get in touch with us and we can advise you.
Well, you can rent them locally as well. If you don't have them and you go out there and there's a massive snowstorm before you go out, you can get them locally. So really don't worry about picking up a pair just for this trip. Perfect. So I guess the next question is, so what's the food going to be like? As with most nights, your evening meals are included, except for in Chamonix and Courmayeur. And this is just because Chamonix and Courmayeur have so much local choice that we really didn't want to take that option away from you. In the huts, the meals are, everything's going to be quite hearty and delicious. You do have vegetarian and sort of meat options with the hut. Just bear in mind that most of the food needs to be helicoptered up, so it does limit the choice a little bit. So if you have any really specific dietary requirements, I recommend sort of picking up stuff in Chamonix or in Courmayeur. Chamonix has a shop that sort of has specialized sort of food requirements, sort of meets specialized food requirement needs, which is really helpful, especially if you do need this.
Okay, and yeah, just going back to the up-to-date information, we'll be sending an up-to-date timetable for each of the transport options closer to the end of next week. So just look out for the email. We might do a sort of group email, or it might get sent out to you individually. We've not really decided yet, but as soon as we have that information, we'll get that sent out to you.
Any changes and we'll be in touch, so don't worry about that.
Perfect. And so another couple of questions, if you can drink this water from the streams. So you're going to see tons of sort of glacier streams flowing through the mountains, and it's really, really tempting to drink the water. And I know that I have on occasion, however, we don't necessarily recommend it because you don't know what's upstream of the river. There are plenty of sort of fountains where you can drink, well, I don't call it fountains. There are taps that you can fill up your water bottles from. So we recommend sort of filling it up before you go. Just make sure you're prepared before you start your walk. There are plenty of places to fill up your water bottle along the way. There is a sign that says l'eau portable on the sort of drinkable water fountains. So we do recommend you only fill up your water bottles from one of those. And yeah, fill up your water bottle before you go, but you will be able to fill it up on the way.
Yeah. Just while we're waiting for more questions to come in, this will be a good time for me to tell you guys about the Max Adventure app. So we have a new app that's just come into being just a few weeks ago, and this is basically a GPX navigation app. So what we can do, and we're going to work on this next week, is we're going to load all of the GPX tracks for the Tour du Mont Blanc onto this app. And at the end of this webinar, there will be a link for you to be able to access this app. Okay, so this is quite exciting, a new project for us at Max. So if you're just wanting a bit more reassurance, don't get me wrong, you'll get on totally fine with the maps and the waymarking. But if you do want that extra bit of reassurance, then we can highly recommend the app to you and the GPX tracks. Okay, so like I said, the link will be at the end of the webinar, and we'll be in touch next week with an update on the GPX tracks. And if you have any questions about that, you can ask your DNA specialist. Okay.
Okay. Right, so we had a question from Miriam just before the webinar. So Miriam asked, or said, Untitled Heights, are there any sections with sheer drops, and how, where, and how terrifying are the ladders? There is one section between Lelouch and Chamonix, so that's just above Chamonix, where there is a small section with ladders. Now this is a sort of 5-rung ladder, just to help you with the ascent. This is it's not too steep. Most of the ladders are there just to help out, but there is a variant to skip this section. So this is the only section with ladders, and I said you can't skip this section. So if you do have a fear of heights, then there's different options available.
I'm might actually answer some of your luggage, baggage questions. So if you don't mind me sort of picking up the Post-its and sort of working my way through them. So we have a question about how safe is our baggage transfers, because you're thinking about bringing a computer. I'd say they are incredibly safe, but they are being transferred with other bags. So your bags are being tossed into the back of a van. So I'd say don't put valuables in it, because you really don't want your laptop to break. Do you really need to take your laptop? Just because you're going to be in the mountains. If you are thinking about bringing a laptop, I'd actually recommend you just putting it in storage for the trip unless you really need it. How much time do you need before booking the baggage? You can book the baggage, a day before you go. We don't recommend that necessarily. The more time you give us to arrange it, the better. But if you decide the day before, I'm not carrying this, we can arrange it for you.
So Matthew's asked if him and his partner can share one bag, adding up to 50 kilograms. No, you need to limit the baggage transfer weight. This is just to help the baggage transfer guys who'll be lifting the bags. So also we want to look out for them, we don't want them to hurt their backs. So please try and limit this to 15 kilograms. If you are going to have a heavier bag, please let us know, and we can make other arrangements. So I'm going to say no to you, Matthew. You can't have a 50 kilogram bag.
Yeah, it's a health and safety issue really for the guys who do the bag transfer, and it's rules and laws set by the local institutions. So unfortunately not.
Okay, and again for everyone, there are certain huts that don't have baggage transfer. The huts are Elisabetta, Bonatti, and Lac Blanc. And those are the huts. Usually they're on the relaxed huts itinerary. So pay attention when you're on one of the hut trips, because they probably are included on one of those.
Cool. Elizabeth Johnson asked if a baggage transfer is paid for, do we have to pay for storage? No. So the bag storage is included if you opt for the baggage transfer. So the details of this will be on your invoice. She's also asked about recommending taking laptops to be transferred. As Minna covered, they should be okay. Obviously, make sure it's packed correctly. If you have any valuables, make sure it's in the middle of the suitcase or bag.
Yep, so I have a question from Vitali, also about the bag transfer, asking how much is the bag transfer. So this depends on the itinerary. We actually have 8 different Tour du Mont Blanc itineraries. So instead of going into the cost for everyone and trying to remember the cost for everyone, what we'll do, Vitali, is have a look at your booking and see what itinerary you're on, and give you a phone or send you an email with the cost. Okay.
From Bob, I have about us carrying sort of small towels in your day pack. I'd actually recommend it because you don't know if you want to jump in a glacier lake, but just to cool down a nice sunny day. We will transfer it though in your baggage transfer if you don't want to carry it.
We also had a question about the app. Somebody's asked if it's available on Android. It is available on Android and iPhone. Okay.
Okay. So got a few questions here about the huts. So do the huts have blankets? And does the refuge provide a sleeping bag? And do you need to bring a sleeping bag later? So the bedding will be provided in the refuges and the huts. These aren't washed every single day. So I would recommend bringing a liner just between yourself and the bedding. But you won't need to bring your own sleeping bag for each night. So just a sort of thin silk liner, which is very light and just protects you between the bedding and yourself.
Perfect. So a common question is bathrooms. Where on the trail are bathrooms? Now, if you look at your route notes, it'll say what you're walking past every day. I always recommend going before you start walking, just to make sure, because you aren't necessarily walking past places every day. If you are walking past a restaurant or a gondola stop, they will have bathrooms. They usually will let you use them. However, they do kind of like you to buy something as well. So just bear that in mind. Otherwise, you are outside. You could just sneak behind a bush.
So I've got some questions about food. So is dinner provided in the hotels if not staying in the huts? So breakfast and dinner is included every night on all of our itineraries except for the night in Courmayeur and in Chamonix. So these are the two larger towns on the route, so there's lots of different options. So for these nights you're on a bed and breakfast basis, so breakfast is included, but you will be expected to go out and sort of grab your own dinner. In regards to lunches, the accommodations can provide packed lunches for you, so you can actually order these the night before, and it's ideal just to put in your backpack and have halfway up the mountain with spectacular views. So yeah.
Regarding sort of paying in the hotels, if you're in a hotel, they'll have a card machine usually, so you can pay on your credit card. However, with the mountain huts, they will prefer you to have cash. Especially, it's good to know as well, when you're going into Switzerland and you're paying in cash, pay in francs. They do usually accept euros, however they charge you 1-to-1, which the exchange rate definitely is not. So if you are looking to get ripped off, then don't get Swiss francs. However, I'd say do.
And just following up on this point there, if you do pay for in euros in Switzerland, you will have Swiss francs as change. So that's just something to remember.
It's good to have coins as well for the buses. You could be taking some of the Swiss buses, so the buses will definitely need cash.
Being asked how much the cable car from lelouch is. This does vary every season. As I said before, we are still waiting to get updated prices. Last year this was about 16 euros, I think, each way. So yeah, it should be under 20 euros again. But again, we'll have the exact price for you soon. Sorry, just touching back on that, you do just buy your ticket locally, and there's a ticket office just at the bottom of the gondola, so you just buy it on the day. You don't need to pre-book this.
Perfect. Tipping for food services. So because in the huts you're kind of at a big group meal, I guess, you don't really need to tip. I think that if you think that a service has been extraordinary and really stood out and you really want to show your appreciation somehow, I mean, they do appreciate it, but it's not needed. So I don't think you really need to budget much for tipping just because it's not expected. But if you do feel like someone's done a really good job and you'd like to show your appreciation, then I definitely tip. Wait, so if you do decide to tip, I'd say 10%?
Yeah, that's sort of standard. So Catherine has asked, are we able to do laundry on the trip? So I've been asked this a few times. In the larger towns, so that is Courmayeur and Chamonix, there are laundrettes. So if you want to pay for the service and have a full laundry service, that option is available. In the smaller accommodations, they usually have a drying room, so you can wash your clothes in the sinks and in your bedroom and leave these to hang up, but you won't have access to a sort of laundrette or a washing machine. So if you are needing to do a full wash, you have to wait till Courmayeur or Chamonix.
I just like to thank you so much, you guys, for all your questions, because this is making it really easy and really enjoyable for us. It is fun, isn't it?
I'm just picking on the easy ones.
So I have a question here about hot water for tea on the trail. Your accommodations will give you hot water for tea on the trail. So if you bring they won't provide you with a thermos, but they will provide you with hot water. So if you bring your own thermos with you, they'll give you hot water. If you're really nice, they might even give you a tea bag.
I have a question about stream crossings. Are there any? There aren't any of any significance, I don't think. I just think off the top of my head.
No, unless there's still running water. But
if there is, it'll be very small, and you can probably just flick over it. So don't worry about that at all.
Brian Smith has asked, do refugees have running water? Yes, Brian, they do. Also been asked if the showers and huts are free, and yes, they are. So full showering facilities, you don't need to pay to wash. So all included. I think that might be us for the questions.
Yeah, so well, if there's more, if we haven't answered any of your questions, or you want to ask more detail about one of your questions, feel like we haven't gone in depth enough, just send us an email, send me an email, send Craig an email, maybe not Sarah. send one to info@maxadventure.com. It'll definitely get picked up and we'll answer it as soon as possible.
Cool. Ooh. Right, so we do have some top tips. So do you want to read out?
Yeah, sure. Erin's not here just now, but Erin's top tip, and I've already touched on this, is to bring a highlighter pen. She had a great time sitting in the evenings planning and marking her route on the map for the next day. It's not only fun, but it also gives you better peace of mind. So you can just get up and go the next day, and you know you've already done all the planning the day before.
Cool. My top tip, if you do have some spare time, I would definitely recommend an extra night at the end in Chamonix. There's lots to do. I used to live out there, so I know all the best signs, all the best bars and restaurants and places to go. I definitely recommend doing up the Aiguille de Midi cable car. So this is the second biggest attraction in France behind the Eiffel Tower, and the views up there are absolutely stunning. Can't recommend it enough. You will need to pay for a ticket to go up the cable car. You just purchase that at the ticket station in Chamonix. So yeah, go up there and check out Mont Blanc, which is just right next to you.
I feel like my tip's a lot less exciting now after Craig's. Ziploc bags, I think, yeah, a plastic bag in general is really useful for, if you want to pack, if you want to get lunch when you're out there, make your own little French baguette, put it in a Ziploc bag, get it ready. It's also really good to waterproof your phone if you do get caught in the rain. Throw your valuables in it. So yeah, Ziploc bag.
My top tip is to do with food. If you're staying at the Hotel Bouton d'Or in Courmayeur, which most of you probably are, definitely make time for the breakfast, because oh my goodness, this is the best breakfast I've ever had in my life. It's a huge buffet. There's lots of freshly made cakes by Andrea. So the hotel is run by a lovely couple called Patrizia and Andrea, and they're super helpful, and they make the best cakes. So just make the extra effort to get up a wee bit earlier so you can spend as much time as possible trying all the different cakes.
And Neil's top tip is, just make sure you've got some walking poles. That's if you're used to using them. You can, of course, rent walking poles in Chamonix and lelouch. So there's lots of shops and lots of rental places where you can hire equipment. So Neil's advice is, take some walking poles. And as Minna touched, if you are comfortable with these, then you probably have some already. Cool. Well, I think.
Sure. So if you want to download this webinar and send it to your friends who couldn't make it, just please go to www.maxadventure.com/events. We'll put it all online. We'll be in touch with you with more sort of bus schedules as well. And again, if we haven't answered some of your questions or you want more detail, just give us a shout. We're really here to help.
Yeah, you'll see at the bottom of the screen as well all our contact details, and please save these on your phone and make sure you have them noted down elsewhere, and just don't ever hesitate. If you're really unsure about something before you go, when you're out there, please get in touch because we're more than happy to help. So I think that's it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hope you have a fantastic trip.
Enjoy. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.